Welcome to the first in a series of broadcasts Thru will be presenting over the next 6 months. These presentations will be hosted by Thru's executive, technology, and customer support leadership. Topics discussed in webcasts will focus on current and future challenges around managing file transfer. Thomas Skye Backmoen, VP of Marketing and Product Strategy, is joined by Lee Harrison, Thru's CEO, to discuss trends in the managed file transfer market. This presentation was originally aired Thursday, September 8, 2011.
Hi, and welcome to today's webinar. We'll be discussing managed file transfer market trends today and the possible impact on your organization. Hi, I'm Lee Harrison, CEO of cloud MFT vendor Thru, headquartered in Dallas, Texas. My guest for today's session is my good friend and colleague, Thomas Skye Backmoen from Gartner, now VP of Marketing and Product Strategy here at Thru. Our focus for today's session is to highlight some of the benefits of moving from FTP to Managed File Transfer, or MFT. We ask you guys as participants to key in your questions throughout the session, and Thomas and I will do our best to answer them as we go. While no one's ever been accredited with the term Managed File Transfer, this category designation has been around since the mid-2000s. Thomas, I understand Gartner has been tracking this space for some time, and I'm sure everyone is very curious. What is the process for developing a definition for an IT category?
Well, as you can imagine, Lee, Gartner's tracked this since the early 2000s, and we have very strict processes around any publication we do, be that a research paper, be that a definition, and especially definitions, because they do get picked up by vendors and they do get picked up by newspapers, online, and so on. And they'll run through an extra process or two in terms of comments, and we try and accommodate that. So in doing definitions at Gartner, we really wanted to clearly distinguish between MFT and FTP in this particular one, while keeping the definition short and sweet. The process really starts with an analyst presenting the definition to a group of colleagues, be that a telephone conference, be that a collaboration system we use, or an email distribution. And it goes through a review process. That review process really consists of the analyst giving feedback, comments, asking questions, and the analysts have to then stand up and not only defend the definition, but also be able to clarify every aspect and point of that.
Sounds very collaborative.
Yes, and sometimes this can go on for several weeks, even months. There are, sometimes I wouldn't say fights, but some hefty definition and clarifications that we have to go through to make this as crisp, as clear as possible.
Knowing several analysts at Gartner, I could see the fights.
Yeah, It's always interesting. We go through several iterations of the definition as well before we end up with the final. And then it's presented to management for sign-off, and then it's obviously publicized. And often then we get questions from media and vendors as well, what we mean. And in this particular definition, we use manage and monitor to explain the key difference between FTP and MFT. Manage all file transfers from one interface across all business units, operations, systems, be that operating systems, applications, and business partners. Whereas monitor all file transfers means that you manage that from one centralized location. So one server gives you better governance, compliance, and reduced IT cost. Obviously, in this presentation, in this webinar, we'll go into this definition in some more detail. However, I published several articles on the subject while at Gartner, and we'll not be able to go all over every single aspect that MFT covers in this presentation, but we would be very happy to field any questions that people might have after this webinar.
Well, speaking of questions, we've got our first question from the audience. Is this the latest Gartner definition, Thomas?
Yes, as far as I'm aware. I'm sure my former colleagues are working on redefining this or looking at the definition as we speak, but this is the last one.
Well, today's topic is broken down into 4 key trends, and the first of these is FTP migration. Everyone would agree that the explosion of file size and volume of files that need to be transferred follows Moore's law. Every 18 months, the volume and the size of files doubles. Thomas, is that in line with what you're seeing in the marketplace?
Most organizations are really not aware of their file volume, and it's only when they do, let's call it a file transfer inventory and analysis, they start scanning for FTPs within their environment, and they start asking the different business units. Often they find that a business unit looking after, or an IT department looking after an ERP application, have their own scripts and FTP solutions running, and you find this for most of the major applications within an organization. And then you have the different business units that have set up FTPs and scripts to manage certain jobs, be that a connection to external partners and so on. So they start realizing that as much as 80% of managed file transfer is really about, moving large files. It is not so much about moving the small messages, and that sort of accounts for about 20% or so of the overall file movement.
We see a lot of times when we move into a new account that we start out in one department and they have no idea what's going on in other parts of the business. They haven't done a total examination of how much file transfer might be going on in the business. So we'll start in one department moving a vast amount of data, and the next thing you know, we're in 4, 5, 6 departments and even company-wide at some point.
Well, I often relate the growth in MFT to the growth in video. A few years back, we were all comfortable with 240 progressive scan streaming video, and now we want to see REM or Beyonce in HD.
I like the REM piece.
Well, I brought that in because of a age difference here.
That's right.
Scheduling is another major reason why organizations look to MFT. The staffing and administration necessarily for MFTs and script, they really increase as you increase the file sizes and volumes within these solutions rather than the other way around. So it doesn't scale well. The problem organizations face is that FTP applications do not offer one centralized interface for you to monitor, schedule, as well as manage all your transfers, as well as workflows. So imagine having to configure 4 or 5 servers just to configure a workflow, including that of an external business partner. It is not easy with FTP and script, whereas with MFT you can actually do that from within one central interface. You can send a client to your external business partner with pre-configured solutions, and it comes often with things like heartbeat and monitoring capabilities as well.
Well, in these days of just-in-time manufacturing and zero wait time, scheduling, it becomes so important. You cannot miss a single schedule. It could cost your business an enormous amount of money for a single file transfer failure.
Yes, you're right. It is somewhat driven by that fact as well, because more strict requirements around security, especially in the DMZ, the demilitarized zones, is very important as more and more companies are exposing data to their business partners. And FTP solutions do not provide those capabilities to secure data in transit as well as rest, such as 1024-bit encryption, and uses SSL as standard.
How about monitoring and auditability?
Well, when we look at monitoring and auditability as a factor, we've established that FTP doesn't have essential visibility because it's not database driven. MFT, on the other hand, is, and it then, as we pointed out here, enables businesses not only to monitor several hundreds or thousands transactions, but also be able to go back in time and drill down, and having easy access to that. So it also offers a vast range of reporting with drill down when needed. Well, we already alluded to the fact that script and execution handling is important in these things as well. MFT, as I mentioned, offers one centralized scheduler, and this in turn enables organizations to monitor and manage all file transfers using the same rules.
We all know how scripting doesn't scale. The person that wrote the script leaves the company. The script is not written by a professional developer, and at some point that breaks down in most organizations.
This concludes part 1. Thank you for participating. If you have any questions or want to speak to us, please call 1-800-871-9316 or email us at info@thruinc.com.